Hello and welcome once again to the Wrestling Group. I'm your host, as always, Ryan, and today we are going to be doing our AEW All Out predictions. Now, AEW All Out is on tonight, and if you're like me and you're watching it in the UK, it starts at 8 o'clock. They push the time forward so that they don't go against the sports entertainment crappy programming that they're doing, the counter crap. So they've pushed forward, which is better for us because it starts at 8 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock in the morning. So I'm more than happy for that to be a thing. So without further ado, I'm going to push on and kick straight into it because, including the kickoff show, we have 13 matches to get through. So there's 10 on the main card and 3 on the pre-show. So we'll kick straight into it because I don't want this video to be longer than the pay-per-view. So we'll start with the 8-women's Tornado Tailgate Brawl match, which is Harley Cameron, Mina Shirakawa, Queen Aminata, and Willow Nightingale versus Megan Bayne, Penelope Ford, and the Triangle of Madness members Julia Hart and Sky Blue. So they've all been involved, obviously, in storylines over the last couple of weeks, especially with the Triangle of Madness and Megan Bayne. They've been teaming up quite a bit, and they've been facing off against different variations of face tag teams, like obviously Harley and Chris Statlander and stuff like that. So they've been doing a lot of 8-women tag matches on Collision mainly, and 6 women as well. So they've all sort of been involved in each other's storylines over the last couple of weeks. For me, for this one, I'm going to pick the face women. So I'm going to go for Harley, Mina, Queen Aminata, and Willow Nightingale. I don't think it really matters either way, which way they're booked, who wins. But to be honest with you, I just feel like that the face are going to get the victory. Harley, she's ever popular with the fans. Mina, again, ever popular with the fans. She's also Ring of Honor television champion. You've got Queen Aminata, who's been brilliant over the last 6 months, and Willow Nightingale, who's been one of the best women AEW have ever signed. So we'll move on next to the second match of the pre-show, and it is new Death Riders member Daniel Garcia, and he will face off against Ops member Katsuyori Shibata. Now, if you go back about 2 years ago, these two faced off, and Wheeler Yuta as well, and they had some phenomenal matches when the Ring of Honor Pure Championship was involved. They had some great matches, and I'm really excited to see this one again. Plus, obviously, Garcia is recently into the Death Riders, so it would be interesting to see how he goes about the match. Is he going to go pure heel, full heel mode? Is he going to poke eyes and stuff and that, or is he just going to be a normal technical wrestler? I'd probably expect Marina Shafir to be in his corner as well. To be honest with you, I'm going to actually go with Daniel Garcia to pick up the victory. As say, he's newly into the Death Riders, and I don't think, because he was on a losing streak, wasn't he? He was losing all the big matches and stuff, and that's why he's ended up joining the Death Riders. And if they are going to actually push on and keep him in the Death Riders, which I hope they do, I don't want to see this just being a play so then he can help Darby Allin out later on. I want this to be, Garcia properly into the Death Riders, because I think it'll be brilliant for his career. And obviously Shibata is a great wrestler. We know this, we've seen it so often. Again, say, during the Ring of Honor Pure Championship days, these two had some fantastic matches, and I expect this to be no different, so I'll definitely be checking out. I mean, to be honest, that's the one I'm looking forward to. Out of the pre-show matches, that's the match I'm looking forward to the most. So I'm picking Daniel Garcia for victory. So move on to the third match of the pre-show, and it is the Ops, which is Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs versus the Workhorsemen. So that's just a normal tag team match. Obviously, Shibata is involved in the match against Garcia, so it's just a 2-on-2. So obviously the titles aren't on the line, because obviously the 6-man tag team titles. But I'm going to say the Ops pick up the victory here. I don't see JD Drake and Henry giving them too much trouble. The size of Joe and Hobbs alone should be enough for them to just dominate and pretty much get through that match without any issues. So that is the pre-show. So now we go on to 10 matches of the main card. And like I say, I will fly through these pretty quick because I just don't want the video to be lasting too long. So no, if you're like me, you're very excited about AEW All Out and you don't want to sit there for half an hour listening to some random dude tell you his predictions. So let's see if we can get this done as quickly as possible, but also make it enjoyable. And as always, don't forget, you can leave your predictions in the comment section below too. Let me know who you think is going to win each and every one of these matches, and let me know who you think is going to have match of the night. That is an interesting one because each and every one of these has the potential to be match of the night. So I'm just going to look at it online and go through basically in the way that it appears online, as to have an order, because obviously we don't have an order, do we? So I'll start with Brody, though, who are obviously Brody King and Bandito. They are the tag team champions, and they are defending their titles in a tag team championship 4-way ladder match. So this is going to be an exciting one. It's going to be hopefully some flips and dives off the ladders. That's what we like to see. So we've got Rodito defending their titles against obviously the Young Bucks, who's one of the greatest tag teams in history of professional wrestling. You've got Jet Speed, who've been on a fantastic role since both come to the company and being paired together in Kevin Knight and Speedball Mike Bailey. Really over with the fans. It's hard to believe that they haven't been tag team for about 5 years because they look fantastic together. And then Don Callis family members, Hitch Cicero and Josh Alexander, who are more powerhouses and technical wrestlers than the others. To be honest with you, it's quite a hard one to pick this. I mean, I like Brody though, and I feel like, you know, they've not had the belts long, but I don't think they're going to be a long reigning champions anyway. We've got the Young Bucks, who are already 3-time AEW Tag Team Champions. Do they really need a fourth? Probably not, although, to be fair, the storyline that they're doing, it would make sense for the Young Bucks to be the tag champs again. Then we have Jet Speed, who obviously have challenged for the titles on a couple of occasions now and come up short. And then we've got Hitchison and Josh Alexander, who obviously have not teamed together very long, but looked very dominating when they did do. To be honest with you, because they've not had the titles very long, I'm going to pick Brody though to retain, although it would be a perfect scenario to switch up the titles in a multi-man tag team match, but we've seen that at the last pay-per-view when Brody though did pick up the victory. So although I was going to say maybe the Young Bucks, but no, do you know what, I'm going to stick with Brody though, only because they haven't had the titles too long, so I'm going to say they're going to pick up the victory and retain the tag titles. So we'll move on to the next one, and we have Big Bill versus the returning Eddie Kingston. So Eddie Kingston's been out now for, about 16 months. Got injured by Gabe Kidd wrestling in New Japan for the which one was it? Which title did they have? The New Japan Strong Openweight Championship, wasn't it? The strong title. I get confused because they've got so many titles that are quite similar. So they were wrestling for that, and obviously he's been injured. He's had to have surgery, and then he didn't know whether he was going to return or not, didn't he? So, and then he's going to be facing Big Bill. So Big Bill's obviously called him out, and said he wants to face him. You know, we've had the confirmation that Eddie will be at All Out, but we've not yet seen him, so I feel like when this music hits, the arena is gonna pop, because he's obviously a massive fan favourite. If you've got to return Eddie Kingston, he's coming back to wrestle for the first time in 16 months. There's no way he's coming back and losing, especially to, no offence, but Big Bill. You know, Eddie's obviously a lot bigger name than what Big Bill is. But it's a good way as well to bring Big Bill to being fully heel again, because obviously he's been getting a lot of cheering over the last 6 months from fans. He's not going to get cheered against Eddie Kingston, let's put it that way. And, you know, Eddie's ready to pick up his sword and fight for Team AEW once again. So Eddie Kingston all the way for the victory. I don't expect that match to last longer than 10 minutes, to be fair, but it should still be entertaining nonetheless. So we'll move on from this one and we'll go to Mark Briscoe versus MJF in a TNT match, as Mark Briscoe likes to call it, a tables and tax match. Basically, it's no disqualification, but there's going to be a lot of tax involved and a lot of tables involved. Should be an interesting one. Obviously, Mark Briscoe, he's better in a hardcore style match. We've seen him do some great matches over the last couple of years, when it's been like no holds barred. Obviously, even when he was tag teaming with his brother Jay, the dog collar matches and that with FTR, we've seen that they're good with weapons. And then you got MJF, who obviously is a great heel. But let's be honest, I think MJF picks up the victory. I can't see Mark Briscoe beating MJF. MJF's a main event caliber wrestler, and Mark Briscoe is a mid-carder. That's not a knock on him, that's just his position on the card. I really like both guys, but MJF has to pick up the victory here for me. Then we'll move on next to the Hurt Syndicate, which is obviously Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP versus Ricochet and Gates of Agony, Bishop, Khan, and Toa Leona. So they are facing in a 6-man match. To be honest with you, I feel like this should be the number one contenders for the 6-man AEW Tag Team Championships. Obviously, they're not being defended on this pay-per-view with the two separate matches that they have on the pre-show. But, surely whoever wins this should then go on and face the Ops for the AEW Trios Championships. We've got MVP in the ring, which is, I want to say, third time he's wrestling in AEW. He doesn't wrestle a lot anymore, does he? But he's going to be in this Trios match. And then we've got, obviously, Ricochet and Gates of Agony. Gates of Agony have gone up again another level since teaming with Ricochet. Ricochet has been, like he likes to say, out of this world since joining AEW. Ricochet's matches don't miss, which we all knew was the case anyway, but he was getting 2.5 minutes matches in WE on Twitter, so it's no surprise that now he's coming and he's given time, that he's showing he is still one of the best high flyers in-ring wrestlers that is on offer, basically. I'd like to see Ricochet pick up a title soon in AEW, whether it be the TNT or even maybe the Trios. But on this occasion, with the Hurt Syndicate newly turning face, and that right hand from MVP on September to remember, he did an half-clock Ricochet. If you look at them, based on just talent, like power, athletic ability, Lashley and Shelton Benjamin obviously are the better of the entire match. So I'm going to go Hurt Syndicate to pick up the victory. And then we'll move on next to a women's match, and we'll go for Mercedes Moné versus Riho for the AEW TBS Championship. Now, obviously, Mercedes, she's held that title literally since she come into AEW. She's had only one defeat since coming to the company, which was obviously against Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. But she's collected championships along the way, mainly from indie promotions. She is a 9-time champion currently. She wants to hold at least 10, maybe 11, to then go level with Ultimo Dragon and then surpass him. Whether she does, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like at this point now, if Riho doesn't defeat Mercedes Moné, then where are we going from here? Can't see anyone else on the roster now that she hasn't already faced and beaten that she could face for the TBS Championship. That is a face, because obviously Mercedes is a heel. We've seen her face Athena in the past, but obviously Athena, again, like Mercedes, challenged Toni for the world title and failed. She's now done 1,000 days in Ring of Honor. Could she possibly be the one to face Mercedes? I'd like to see them face again, but I don't see Athena turning face anytime soon. So, I don't know. I think it's a hard one. AEW do like Riho. She's been there from the very beginning. I think was she the very first AEW World Champion. So, it's a good possibility Riho walks out with the title here, but she's very in and out of the roster, so it depends how long she's going to be in AEW for. She is in and out all the time, so is she going to stop by for this match and then disappear again, similar to Hikaru Shida? They just sort of flip in and out for a couple of months and disappear again. I'd like to say Riho gets the win, because I'd like to see them start pushing on now with the titles. If Mercedes drops the belt to Riho, and Tony drops her belt, then Mercedes can then move up to the World Championship, especially if it's against like a Jamie Hayter, which a lot of people seem to think it's going to be. Do you know what? Yeah, I've talked myself into it. I'm going to go Riho picks up the victory and becomes new AEW TBS Women's Champion. So we'll move on next, and we're looking at Kazuchika Okada defending the AEW Unified Championship against Konosuke Takeshita and Masuka Dorada. So that is a triple threat for the AEW Unified Championship. Obviously, they had the tournament recently. Takeshita and Masuka Dorada both earning their chances to face, obviously, the champion Okada, who obviously defended the title recently against Michael Oku to get into the match himself. So Okada beat Oku, Takeshita beat Anthony Bones, and Masuka Dorada defeated the Beast Mortos. 3 great matches to get them to where we are, and we know this match is going to hit massively. They've teased Okada versus Takeshita for a long time now, and then obviously added Masuka Dorada, who's one of the best Lucha Libre wrestlers in the world right now. It's going to be definitely, potentially match of the night. It's going to be a banger, that's for definite, and it's potentially, like say, match of the night. Although I can't see anything other than a Okada victory. I think Okada retains the title. Like say, Takeshita, I think, is going to go on and win the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And then we're going to get them to face off at Wrestle Kingdom next January. So that's where I'm going with that. And I say Okada is going to pick up the victory in the triple threat match and still keep hold of that title. And then we'll move on next to Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley in a coffin match. This is a storyline that's been building now for the best part of a year and a half. You know, we've seen Jon Moxley originally turn on Danielson. Darby was involved in that. They've been in and out of each other's lives over the past 16 months, and it's time we got them to face off against each other. Obviously, the last time they faced against each other, Jon Moxley defeated Darby Allin to take his AEW title shot, which was obviously going to be against Bryan Danielson. Whoops, slip of the tongue. Please don't shoot me. Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship. But obviously, Jon Moxley defeated Darby and took that away from him, then became the AEW World Champion. And so this is a coffin match, and this will undoubtedly end the storyline between these. And I think Darby Allin's going to pick up the victory. I feel like they've started to push Darby towards the main event scene. A win over Jon Moxley finally will push him into that main event title picture. I always think it's going to do more for Darby if he wins than Jon Moxley. Plus, Mox losing a coffin match isn't going to be the be all and end all. You know, he's at that point now where I don't think any loss hurts Moxley. He's that big of a name now in the company. But yeah, I think Darby picks up the victory in the coffin match and then starts pushing towards being a main event caliber wrestler. Definitely needs a title again. We haven't seen a title on him since he was tag team champion with Sting, and then TNT champion. He hasn't been for about, I want to say, 3 years. So we move on next to the AEW Women's World Title match, and that is Timeless Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter versus Chris Statlander versus Tekla of the Triangle of Madness. So this is going to be a brilliant match. You know, it's no disqualification because it's a fatal 4-way. You've got Toni, who's been brilliant as probably the best women's wrestler in the world for the past 3 years. She's up there with Athena. You know, that's personally, I think Athena is at the top. But obviously Toni, especially because she's been on TV more, has definitely been up there as the top women's wrestler in the world. She's 3-time, 4-time AEW Women's World Champion. And then you've got Jamie Hayter, who obviously got injured the first time she was world champion. She's been on a long claw back to the top. You've got Chris Statlander, who's been TBS champion, but has never been AEW Women's World Champion, but she's been in the company since the beginning. And then you've got Tekla, who's came over from Stardom as a main event player and has done nothing but dominate since she's come to the company. I think this is the perfect time to take the belt off Toni. You know, she's had it now for the past 6-7 months. And I feel like it's time we pushed on and moved to a new direction. I know a lot of people are thinking Jamie Hayter picks up the victory because obviously, she's a big name for the company, and fans really get behind it. I've not really took to her as much this second run as I did the first. Chris Statlander would be another great option, but I feel like Chris should be really in the TBS division rather than the World. That is maybe just me, but that's what I feel. And Tekla is the one I would put the belt on. I feel like she'd be perfect to be a top heel in the company. And especially adding Triangle Madness there, you could easily have her keep the belt for a good while with them interfering, helping in the matches. So I'm going to pick Tekla picks up the victory and becomes the new AEW Women's Champion. So yeah, Tekla is my pick there, and then I believe there's only 2 matches left. So we're going to go to Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. That is Copeland Cage versus FTR, which is obviously Cashwell and Dax Harwood, in a dream tag team match. Now this is one I am excited. Well, I say I'm excited for. I'm excited for most matches on the card, but to be honest with you, this is right up there. This is a dream match. I know dream matches get thrown out there a lot, but if you think about it, this is one of the top tag teams of the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, teaming together again for the first time in years, and they're going to be facing FTR, who undoubtedly have been one of the best tag teams of the last decade. So they are going to clash in a absolute dream match. I feel like, Copeland and Christian are still at a level that they can perform at a high level. So, they are consistent, and when they're wrestling, they are doing still really good things. They're not like, as much as I'm a massive Hardy Boys fan, they're my favourite tag team of all time, but they can barely walk at the moment. At least Cope and Christian are still at that level that they can perform great matches. And then you've got FTR, and I've said it a million times over, FTR don't do average matches. So this will be a fantastic match. More than likely be one of the matches of the night. Obviously, we've seen Dax got his nose broke by Christian this week when he smashed him in the face with the microphone. So it'd be interesting to see if Dax gives him one back. But I expect this to just be an all-out war. It's going to be a great match, probably 20-25 minutes long. But I do think that Cope and Christian are going to pick up the victory. And then I feel like they're going to get pushed towards the AEW tag team titles before long. So if I've worked this out right, which I think I have, then the last match, obviously being the main event, is the AEW World Heavyweight Championship match of Hangman Adam Page versus Carl Fletcher. Obviously Fletcher's TNT title is not on the line, but if any member of the Don Callis family does interfere, Fletcher will not only be disqualified during this match, but his TNT championship will in fact be stripped. So a lot on the line for Kyle and a lot on the line for Hangman. This has potentially to be the match of the night. Again, another one, I know I've said it a couple of times now, but Hangman Page has been fantastic for the last 2 to 3 years. He's just been going up and up and up. He was stale for a little bit, and then he got into that rivalry with Swerve, and they both elevated each other up to the top. And then he's eventually done his redemption storyline and been the one to finally beat Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship in an absolutely fantastic moment. A great rematch as well. And then he defended it successfully against MJF in a really good match at the last pay-per-view. And now we have going against probably the fastest rising star that AEW have had since starting the company. He came in as just basically a tag team wrestler, and he wasn't considered to be basically a future world champion or a future face of the company. And now look, just a couple of years on, he is literally undoubtedly going to be at some point an AEW World Heavyweight Champion. I don't see him being this time, though. I think Hangman is going to pick up the victory. I feel like he retains his title, but it's good experience for Kyle Fletcher to get a shot and keep him around the world title scene. And obviously I feel like this is where we're going to get the storyline that I think if it doesn't happen, it's at least going to definitely be dropped that the Don Callis family are going to turn on Kenosuke Takeshita. It'll either be tonight or it's going to be the start of, you know what I mean? I think Takeshita's going to get kicked out of the Don Callis family and turn face to obviously go against the Carter eventually. But yeah, Kyle Fletcher for me is phenomenal. He is going to show just why he should be in and around the AEW World Heavyweight title scene. But Hangman Page undoubtedly is going to pick up the victory and retain the title. He's going to be our AEW World Champion, I'd say, for another couple of months at least. So there you have it. That is the full predictions. And like I say, I tried to run through it as quickly as possible, but we still ended up going 25 minutes. So if you're still with me, thank you for listening. And as always, don't forget to leave your predictions in the comment section below. Let me know who you think is going to win each and every match. And obviously, pick yourself what you think is going to be the match of the night. So, as always, thank you for listening, and don't forget to like, drop us a comment, and of course, subscribe to the Wrestling Group today.